So welcome everyone. My name's Mike Lafontaine. I'm the manager for the mapping team at OC Survey. And yeah, so I'm here to talk about AutoCAD and kind of our processes. And we're in a production environment. So not only quality is paramount, but also production, comes into play. So you're going to kind of hear about it from a production standpoint. And how you kind of set up, your CAD standards in order to produce. So you're going to kind of hear from it from a large organization perspective. Before we get started, do you guys mind in your chat box, just kind of give me on a scale of 1 to 5, your AutoCAD experience level. 1 being you've turned it on once or never seen it. And then 5 being that, you use it frequently. Just kind of want to get an idea of, everyone we're chatting with here. All right. Seeing quite a few 5s. Uh-oh, microstation, sorry.
It's a blast from the past, Mike.
Yeah. That's Caltrans,
That must
right?
have been Rob right there.
That's
Must have been Rob.
Sorry, Rob.
No, I'm down below that.
He's a 1.2, he says.
All right, cool. So got a good mix, but it seems like we have some people that are knowledgeable of AutoCAD. And so just to kind of delineate the difference, AutoCAD is kind of the 2D environment. Civil 3D is a 3D environment. So we primarily work in a 3D environment. So majority of my presentation is going to be referencing 3D. All right, so before we jump in, it's always good to understand what your final deliverable looks like, because that kind of determines the CAD standards and ultimately your drafting processes. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. And we're gonna look at, can you, the host, can you enable screen sharing, please? There we go. Thank you.
There we go.
All right, can everyone see that? Give me a thumbs up.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, so this is our deliverable, a typical deliverable you're going to see out of our department. So we deliver our products through a web map, an Esri web map, as you can see here, and it's kind of nice because you get all we take drone imagery of all of our surveys, topographic surveys, and then we have a kind of a nice the PDF included in here, the topographic survey. And you can simply download the PDF here, and just a really nice, easy way for the user. And then we also, which I'll get into a little bit later, we also have a 3D point cloud we include in this web map. Just wanted to show that off a little bit to Rob.
Yeah, whatever.
So anyways, so this is what our standard deliverable looks like, right? So you got to understand what you're trying to get to before you determine what your CAD standards are going to be. So, as you can see, a lot of this is already standardized within our template. So, the goal of the template is to try and minimize the amount of drafting you're doing and put a lot more emphasis on your QAQC processes. So, you kind of get a feel, you kind of see what we're dealing with here. You got the different line types. We're more, there's 2 theories when it comes to CAD. There's for topographic maps. You can either get into the labeling, do a lot of labeling, which we kind of get away from, or you can go to more symbols and hatching, which you can see we're a lot more symbols and hatching kind of philosophy. It looks a lot more cleaner in our opinion, and you're able to kind of visualize it a lot more quickly. So knowing that really helps you determine, again, your CAD standards and processes. All right. So just there's a feel of that map, and then this is a roadway. And then just kind of want to show you what a channel project looks like. Very similar, right? And this, again, this is, we're trying to minimize the amount of drafting. So here's the channel. This is a flood control channel, right? Kind of same look and feel. This one, we have the trees labeled, the diameters. It's kind of a special request for this survey. Okay. So now
Michael, is that because of the environmental considerations in the channel areas that you labeled the trees?
Yes. Yep. That's a big reason why. Also understanding what they're getting into, you know, dealing with a 36-inch diameter tree is way different than dealing with a 8-inch or 4-inch, you know. So there you go. That's kind of our standard deliverables. So now we'll get into kind of the CAD part of it. And just kind of give you a rundown. My goal is to kind of show you what a deliverable is, and then the components that make up a CAD template. And it seems like you all are pretty advanced. So I'm gonna go through this a little kind of quickly, and then I'm gonna kind of show you when you combine those components, you can get, you know, you can have field to finish, you know, come up really nice. You can create your surfaces, you know, very quickly. And then you can even get into some corridors and cool things like that. But we'll start off, you know, what's the basic components? So I recorded a video here just because I knew remote access to my computer at work would be limited. So it's kind of a video. So I'll speed up through parts that may go a little too long. All right, so you have your basic template. I'm assuming everyone knows what a template is, but kind of go through. The first thing you obviously want to do is open up a template, and then we'll show you kind of the components within it. So speed it up a little here.
You might only see your sheet right now.
Oh, okay.
On a different screen.
Oh, thank you, sir. How about that?
Perfect.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So this is our template. Again, you know, you can kind of see the layers to the right there. That's all of our layers. That's one component of your template. And then you're going to have your drawing settings, which I'll show you here in a second. That's probably one of the most critical components. That defines your coordinate system. That defines all your display settings, how your feet display, how you enter input for your angles, and the precision on coordinates, and just a lot of configuration within that drawing settings. So very important, and we'll kind of go through that in a second. And then we'll go through like font styles, setting up your scales, blocks. And once you have those 4 or 5 critical components, you're ready to really expand and get into the field to finish world, get into a lot of the automation that Civil 3D provides and the Civil 3D objects. All right, so I'm kind of showing you the layers here on the right side. So as you can see, you have, you know, we divided, this is our template for survey and design. So you can see we have flood design, road design, survey, kind of separated on that left side over here. And then you have, and then you can kind of see our layers. We kind of go by the National CAD standard, and that's kind of the V stands for survey, C stands for civil design. So we kind of follow that standard. That way it's, you know, just goes nicely across the industry. And then there's your colors. So that's obviously how your displays in model space, and also determines how the line weight of how thick it plots, right? So we have a color determined CTB file, which it plots based on the color. And I was going to show you. So it's not, I mean, you guys know what line weights are. So I was going to show you in the PDF, like the difference in line weights. It's just the line thickness, right? And this is also where you set up like your lines, how the line displays, whether it's continuous line or dashed. And it's a great way to organize your drawing. This is critically important. You have to have layer management prior to, you know, setting up the rest of your template and also your Civil 3D styles, because it's cross-referenced a lot within Civil 3D objects. Okay, so that's kind of layers. Now we'll get into the drawing settings. I'll speed it up a little. Oops, getting a little ahead of myself. Where'd you go, drawing settings? All right. So anyways, drawing settings, again, that determines your coordinate system. Very important, because that's how you're going to talk to other programs, CAD programs as well, because there's a lot of interoperability between GIS, other CAD systems, and it's going to look at your coordinate system in that drawing. So it's imperative you set that up along with all the other units. Okay. And then I'm kind of going to show you some of our font styles here. So the next thing you want to set up is your font styles. That's going to determine, you know, how your font shows up, and also you can name it. So it's, again, it's very interoperable with a lot of the objects within Civil 3D.
Later, man.
So I'm going through, I'm into blocks now. And then in our CAD template, we embedded the blocks within the template. So it makes it very easy to just add a block in. Super simple. And I'll kind of go through on what that looks like.
Michael, as we're watching this, did you all develop your own template, or did you start with a different one and then just build from that?
Yeah, so we started with something small and then we built upon it. So about 5 years ago, we started with a template, and we had a major overhaul 2 years ago, and then we just been building upon it ever since. So obviously it helps to, you know, have a template pre-built, because it takes days to build a template. But the biggest key, I think, is the maintenance part of it. You have to maintain that template as your standards change, or as, you know, there's new processes added to your organization. So we update our template weekly.
Do you have one technician that is mainly in charge of that maintenance? You take different comments from everyone, but then that one person builds it into the template?
Very much so. Yeah, that's very important. You got to have a gatekeeper, I call it. And that person monitors and tracks all the changes, and they actually do the changes. So yeah, very important. You don't want several people touching the template, because it can easily get deleted, erased, corrupted. It's happened to me.
Is there any way you could lock that template so you wouldn't allow anyone to make those sort of dangerous edits?
Yes. Yeah, there is a way. So if it's editable, you obviously can't lock it, but there's a way where you create a backup, and then what you do, it's called a template reference file. And that template reference file, you run that like once a week, and you can see all the changes that have been made. But if you're going to keep it open for editing, you know, if it's on a server network, which it is with ours, you know, there's certain people who have read-write access, they can make the edits. But we create template reference file. So any more questions before we kind of go forward through this? These are pretty advanced questions, so I'll kind of keep this a little short. So I just kind of go through and I show you all the different, creating font styles. You can make it so it's super easy to understand. Like we call one of ours like OC general text, and that's going to be all our general text. Okay. And then obviously you have scales. It sounds like you guys probably know about annotation scales. That's also set up in the template. And now we're going to kind of get into the civil 3D styles. And this is probably...
Sorry, excuse me. Could you spend a little time on annotation scales, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So I can't really click around in here. I apologize. Let's see if I can go back to it. No. So if you can see my mouse in this bottom right corner, there's the annotation scales. And when you set up the template, you have to add those individually. It's kind of a pain in the butt. That's why you only want to do it once. And what that does is it allows you to have your fonts and any annotative objects. So fonts is probably your biggest one. And then blocks can also be annotative. And once you change that annotative scale, it changes the size of those features. And it allows you to change your drawing from a 1 to 20 scale to a 1 to 40 in a matter of seconds and plot it, where it comes out to scale. So anyone that kind of remembers back 5 to 10 years ago, that was a pretty difficult task. So anyways, it allows you to kind of change a lot of annotative figures on the fly. It's a huge benefit to have. Does that answer your question, Stephen?
Yes, thank you.
I think one thing too, just to keep in mind too, for details. So if you've got like a 1 to 20 scale or 1 to 40 scale map and you want to do a detail area, the beauty of the annotative scales is it changes with your viewport. So you have a detail in paper space that that you want to have a larger zoom factor. The cool thing about the annotative, you don't have to have separate blocks. It just changes automatically. So really powerful.
Yeah. I recommend all your font styles being annotative. That's something that can really hinder you, especially when you're in a production environment, because it's easy to just do text and then, if the template isn't set to a default annotative font, you're going to get a non-annotative font. And when you go to scale everything up or down, that feature won't scale. So it's very important. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit into field to finish. So all those components, so you have layers, you have your blocks, you have all your scales, ambient settings, and styles all set up. So that's the basic components of your template, right? I'm probably missing 1 or 2 others, but that's kind of the big gist. So now once you have all that, you're able to do cool things such as field to finish. Obviously, there's a few more settings that you have to set up for field to finish. And those are your survey figure prefix database, it's called. Super long word, hang in there. And then what that does, it reads the topographic code from the field, and it determines, oh, okay, I recognize that code, so I'm going to assign this line type to it. And I'm going to draw a line in this point series. So super cool feature. Huge. And the other one is the description keys. So what this does, it reads the topo code from the field and it says, oh, I'm going to convert you into a symbol. Awesome. So you got a symbol at that point. Okay, that's the 2 basic components of field to finish. So I'm going to show you here, we're going to import a data set. and I'm going to show you our field to finish. So the time that field to finish saves is up to 75%. If you were doing this by hand, you would take, at least 75% longer, or I'm sorry, at least 50% longer, but up to 75. So again, going back to the beginning, this allows your team more time for QAQC, making sure that the codes are correct. You're not missing anything in the field. Elevations look proper. So here you go. I'm processing the field to finish. Okay, so it's about 1.5 miles of flood control channel, comes in, in a few seconds, and I have 95% of my line work completed. And it comes in, if you set up the styles properly, you can see that it comes in with the control points already displaying properly. You can see my finished grade showing properly. I even have my inverts called out. So I have probably 85 to 90% of my map complete right here. All I have to do is set up my sheets, be sure that everything's annotated properly, and then QAQC my surface. So that shows you this. And then,
A quick question, Michael.
yep.
While you're mousing over the that alignment there, is there any other way besides just looking at this plan view, maybe running a report to see if any of the feature codes weren't correctly processed, or if maybe the field surveyor incorrectly inputted them in the field?
So yes, what will happen is the field code will not display properly on when you run field to finish. So that's one way of telling you that the code wasn't entered properly. But if you're asking, can you determine if it's, they missed something, or they just totally, fudge the code, that takes a QAQC in the field. That's someone what we do is, after we have the topo complete, is we have a field person walk the topo and be sure nothing's missing.
And we're also doing this in TBC. So we've got, from the field to TBC and then back out, right, Mike? I mean, this is kind of some of the edits are actually done in TBC.
We actually do our edits in StarNet, but we run a TBC report, and that's just checking to make sure that we don't have anything out of tolerance when it comes to like horizontal or vertical angles, which, I mean, it's obviously rare, but it does happen, especially on high vertical angle situations.
And then typically you're going to see, if there's a spike, if there was a mess up in a shot elevation, you're going to see a spike in the contours. And that's one check right there.
Correct.
Is there a way to visualize in 3D, maybe an elevation bust or a rod bust?
Yes. So you would see a big spike in the surface, which you kind of, can you see that, the white and red surface there, the contour intervals?
Yes.
So yeah, you would see a big spike there. And then I'm about to show you a cool feature here where you actually get to drive the surface, and you would definitely see it there.
Hey, Michael, just real quick. So the old field book ways, you had to do like, top back of curb 1 or top back of curb 2, and all of your feature code, or I mean, your feature codes had to have like a 1 and a 2 so that it would read that metadata to create that. Is that still kind of the same way you guys are shooting it, or is it?
We don't run it through the field book process.
Okay.
But that is an option. And no, you can have the code set up however you'd like it to be called.
Okay.
And it runs it by point sequence. So let's say you start at point 1, you go to point 10 is top of curb. Your first 10 shots would be TC, and that 10th shot you'd have to do TCE, space E, and that would end your line.
So it'd be similar, yeah. So the B and the E then, I guess. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So as long as you did the B and the E, it'll kind of read those things. Okay.
Sure. And
Yep.
you can change that B or E to whatever you want too.
Okay.
So that's really flexible as well.
Yep. Got it. So same thing.
Yep. So kind of, I'm just walking you through, here's the finished product of that surface. And this honestly would take, after we ran the field to finish, to create this finished product here would probably take 2 days, maybe not even. And this is a mile and, mile and a half of channel. So now I'm going to show you kind of a drive through here. And this is another way to QAQC your surface. We don't typically do it this way, but it's a cool feature. We'll just kind of wheel around in it, tilt it on its side. So here I am in the channel now. And then we're going to kind of drive through. And this is, I believe is Steven, this is where you'd see a lot of the anomalies in this type of situation when you kind of roll the surface on its side.
How did you jump into this race car view?
So you select the alignment,
Okay.
and then you click on drive in the
Okay.
contextual ribbon.
Got it.
And the rendering styles, as far as your view, can you explain a little bit about that? What I've found is that not just looking at the contour lines, but looking at a 3D surface, the face of the surface helps find those cones and pits. And, it helps isolate the information if you put it into a shaded, realistic view.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Good tips, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So you're totally right. So you can, so this is shaded or conceptual view style, but there's also the 2D or 3D wireframe. So that's, I believe, what you're referencing. Yeah, the wireframe will definitely show you where the pits are, like you were saying. But obviously this is easier to see when you got it tilted on its side. The wireframe's a little more difficult. So that's, yeah.
Michael, for these flood control channel topos that you guys do you ever just run like 10-foot station interval cross sections and just buzz through the cross sections to look for issues?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we cut sections as well. We typically do 25-foot sections depending on the length. But yeah, we'll cut through that's one of our QAQC methods. We'll do a quick profile and then exactly what you said, look for anomalies. Yeah, it's a good point. So there's a way to do a quick profile. You simply, if I had CAD going, you'd simply do a PL, polyline, just across the channel here. And then up at the top, under profile, you go quick profile. And it's going to ask you, select your polyline. So you select that one that you're slicing. And then it'll ask you, what surface do you want to view? So obviously you select, whatever surface. And then you can drag that polyline, perpendicular to your alignment or your whatever feature. And you can see the profile as you move that polyline. Super easy way, very minimal setup. Any other questions before I move forward? All right. So that was kind of showing you a flood channel. I'm going to show you the road topo that I showed you in the beginning with the PDF. Just kind of show you the modest differences. And I think we're going to kind of flip through the road topo as well.
And Michael, at the beginning of your presentation, you said you fly all of these with drone. Are you doing the QAQC with the 3D drone point cloud as well? Or do you not usually look at both the surface and final topo product as compared to that point cloud.
Yes, absolutely. We so our tools for the draftsman is they have that point cloud up on one of their screens, and then they also have the images from the drone on another screen. So they'll be you know, kind of orbiting around in the point cloud against their Civil 3D topographic map. So they'll be looking at, they'll have 3 ways of QAQC in it. Aerial imagery, the 3D point cloud, and then also Google Street View. And then also our field surveyors take photos from the ground as well.
And
So-
are you extracting many features from that point cloud, or is everything collected in the field, but then you have contextual verification by the point cloud?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We don't extract anything from the point cloud. We haven't had to yet. We're getting really close to where, especially we have a LiDAR unit coming on with our drone. That'll be coming in soon. So we're going to start utilizing it more and more. But no, right now it's just the verification, just for the office surveyor. Good question though.
Plus the engineer also likes to see it part of their deliverable that we're
Yeah.
working with.
Yeah, good point, Kevin. You always got to think about the end user.
Is if you extract those features with the codes, then it will work better with your template. And it's almost like virtually surveying through the point cloud, but it still interacts with your template well and creates annotative blocks, and your features are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you extract from your point cloud, you're saying, and then you call it a description that you would call in the template.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. That's always that's the big dilemma these days. Do you want to survey in the field or in the office? Right? Go fly it for 30 minutes in the field and then survey in the office, or do you want to spend the 2 days in the field and then, you know, spend half the time in the office? So
Well, I think what you'll find is you'll get to a merged workflow, and some of those features you'll pull from the point cloud, and some of them you'll shoot because the guys need to pull inverts and things that you won't reliably be able to measure from the drone. They'll be gathering information anyway.
Sure. Yep. All great points. Yep. And that's one of the big reasons we haven't, you know, transitioned fully to relying on drones. We have used drones for stockpiles, you know, dirt, things of that nature, and it's worked out almost better than conventional surveying. But
Right.
yeah, we're not quite there because we deal with urban environments, right? You know, we're dealing with roads, flood channels, some parks, but typically more urban environments where we're not quite there with the drone yet.
Hey,
All right, so I'm
just-
gonna kind of.
Just a side
Go ahead.
note. Hey, Kevin, what drones are you guys using? The
With
Phantom 4?
the DJI, we have about 5 of them. I think we have Phantom, we have the Patrice, a couple of the Phantoms, and then the Inspire also.
So you got a mixed bag.
Yeah, we got a mixed batch.
Cheers.
Yes. So, I mean, that's about it for CAD. I thought I wheeled around, but I guess I didn't with the Surface. But this is just showing you this. This is the PDF that we viewed in the beginning. Just kind of showing you what it looks like in the model space.
Hey, Mike, could you spend 2 minutes on the sheet manager stuff that you had showed a little earlier? I think that's pretty important too, how you set up your sheets on that alignment.
Yeah. So let me go back to it, see if I can find it.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah, so Sheet Set Manager, it is an invaluable tool. so what this is, you can see all those kind of 3, 4, 5, those rectangles cut out. That's all of our sheets. So, and this is created automatically. These are called view frames. So what you tell it is, hey, I have an alignment. I want it to be landscape orientation, and I want it to only north south on my sheets. And then it cuts the sheets automatically for you. And you can automatically tell it to set up your match lines for you and the overlap. So essentially, as you can see, my layout space is on the bottom. It sets up those sheets for you. And this is critical when you get into huge projects. You have to have something like this, because what happens is you're able to edit all your title blocks, and there's other dynamic features within these sheets. You can edit from one location in the sheet set manager. The alternative is to open each sheet and then modify the title block, which most of us have done before, and we know how long it takes. So yeah, sheet set manager, highly recommend it. We were using it for projects that were 10 sheets or larger. We have a new policy though that we're using it for every single project now. It's just so easy, and you're able to automate a lot more things within each sheet. Any other CAD related questions before I kind of show off our 3D model?
I'd like to know more about how you organize your layers. I've had one CAD class, and the drawings looked pretty at the end, but there was sort of like this rat's nest going on in the layers. So you said something about national CAD standards. Is that just the naming convention? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So to my knowledge, National CAD Standards is the naming convention. Okay, let's go back. So layers, it's the way you organize your drawing. It's how it displays in model space. So as you can see on this right side, how I have all my colors set up. So that's the color that's going to display in model space. So that makes it much easier when I'm looking at that rat's nest to see kind of what's going on, right? So like for things that are white, like I don't really care as much about, but things that are like magenta, you know, I want them to stand out. And I know like that's an important feature, for example. And then also it's very important to have good descriptions here on the right side. I don't know if you can see that, but so for anyone to come in, they could read that layer name and be like, V Anno Mark, what the heck is that? And then if you look at it, if they look at the description of the layer, they say, oh, it's a line terminator. Okay. You know, so you kind of get a little more description of what it is. But yeah, it takes some getting used to, and each organization has their own, it's called a color table, your CTB file, and that determines what color plots to what line weight. Or you can also have a style-based color table or style-based table, and you can have each layer plot to a different thickness just based on style. And that's honestly my recommended way of utilizing line weights. I kind of got stuck with the design engineer recommendation on this one.
Legacy stuff is going to keep you with the color based pretty much. But anything starting new, you know, it would be best definitely to just set it up your CAD layers with, you know, the styles, you know, whatever color you want to set, especially if you're an ArcGIS person. That's probably the hardest thing between CAD and GIS is the difference between layers and features. And, you know, you can have in CAD, you can have polylines and points and whatever on one layer. Whereas in GIS, it's all kind of forced based on a feature. So that's kind of makes the difference between CAD and GIS.
That's where I'm coming from 10 years of GIS, and like what's going on here?
Yeah, no, it's CAD's a lot more free flowing, but it's also not as strict. So you can get a lot of trouble if people don't adhere to the CAD standard, to the layer standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
A great example is that before you draw any line, make sure your layer is current, right? If you're creating a line, first thing you should do is, oh, what am I creating? It's going to be a sewer line. All right, let me go to the sewer line layer, make that current, and then start drafting. The biggest kind of pigeonhole or pitfall that people fall into is they just start drafting and they forget what layer they're on. Next thing you know, they got 3/4 days worth of work done and they've been on the wrong layer the whole time. You know, and then it's typically not that hard to change it, but if it doesn't get changed, it becomes a big deal. Does that help you out at all?
But
And that's why Mike was talking also about the standards, you know, the layer standards, and then the styles in Civil 3D, because the nice thing about Civil 3D is when you set up your templates and your styles, now you start drawing, you know, features, it adheres to the style you set up. So you don't have to really remember what layer I have to be on or what, you know, it pretty much follows the styles that you've set up in your template. So that's really critical.
yeah, I think I had problems with fonts. Really, were getting kind of crazy because, like, we set up our page to begin with, and every different size font was a different layer. I think this was last year, so I'm trying to remember. And then if you have, we had our exercises were just copying drawings basically. So if there was a bunch of different fonts, it was like, oh, are these all supposed to be different layers? And now I have this huge pile of layers, and I don't even know what size font I want. So I do it on one, and then that's wrong, and I move it to another layer. And so I ended up just going like, here's my one layer with fonts, and just changing each sort of section within that layer. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that's going to get me in trouble later on. Should I just like keep up with this ginormous list of layers for like every single different thing? Like, can you have different things on one layer? Is that bad?
No, you're going to find with National's CAD standards, it's very generalized layers. So that way you can have multiple styles using the same layer. So for example, like what you mentioned with font styles is all our font styles are on the same layer, and the anno, right, for annotation. But the critical component, what I'm hearing kind of with what sounds like you guys are doing, is you want to go ahead and set up those font styles and then erase any of the other font styles that are like that come out of the box, because that's what people go to, like lean on. You know, they're comfortable when they see Arial or Simplex. That might not be a font style, so that's not going to be set to the right layer. It's not going to be set to the right size. So that's critical. Set up your font styles, make them something that's, like I mentioned, that has a nice, sweet name for your organization. Like general text is what we call everything general. Title, you know, legend. But keep it pretty minimal. And I also heard something in there that we try and steer away from is copying and saving files. And the reason I mention that is you're copying all the potentially bad blocks, you know, that could corrupt your new drawing that you're creating. So make sure before you create it into a final deliverable that you purge and audit that file. And I guarantee you're going to more than likely find some blocks that you didn't know were in there. Okay, and that can corrupt your file. That can make it run slow. That can make it not save properly. There's a whole host of issues that corrupted blocks or whatever can do to your drawing. So I recommend starting from scratch each time, and then maybe copying and pasting just the title block or the line line work or framework
But-
that you want to bring in.
But Mike, you typically start with a template that you've already created. So you're not starting from scratch. You're starting with this template that has all this information in there, but it's a blank slate, right? You already have your text styles and layer styles and, you know, your annotation styles set up, but you don't have any line work or anything that's there. You're just starting a blank slate with the template that you've already created.
That's correct, Kevin. I apologize. We've gotten spoiled at ours. Our template automatically opens when we create a new drawing. And so I'll just kind of quickly go through the process. So we'll create a new drawing, our template's loaded, right? We import let's just say we're doing a topo. We import our points, run field to finish, everything's set up. And then we create sheets through Sheet Set Manager, and that has our title block already in it. I'm sorry, we have to import a sheet style. So that creates one of our layouts, okay? And then we'll create, through Sheet Set Manager, we'll create the remainder of our layouts. And that kind of, that manages your title block, like I mentioned earlier. So 75 to 90% of the process is automated. The only thing we may be doing is a couple, you know, special feature labels. And I mean, we even got it where our datum's automated. You get to pick between two datums. That's all we use. So the more you can automate, the better, but you have to understand what's behind the automation before you do it.
And your CAD technicians aren't running a QAQC on the survey codes. The field crew are responsible for the QAQC, and do they check that in TBC?
Good question. So the field crew is responsible for getting us the codes 95% correct. You know, for minor little things that we may find in the CAD text, that we take that upon ourselves. The field crew, they check it through Civil 3D. They run it just like the CAD technician would. They run a surface on it as well, check for any rod bust. And then they hand that over, and we use StarNet. So they hand over a StarNet file, and then any corrections to codes or potential rod bust we make in StarNet. And then we reprocess that file, create a PTS file.
So your field guys are not creating a Civil 3D drawing that they hand over to the CAD technician. They just hand the codes over in the StarNet file, and then your CAD technician opens up a template, runs the field to finish, and everything comes in as QAQC from the field crew. Instead of handing them a drawing, they're just handing them the survey points with the corrected codes.
That's correct, yes. That way, because the CAD techs are much more knowledgeable of, you know, any changes that may have happened in the template. So, you know, they have better insight into what's going on with the template. So, I mean, that's not the main reason, but that's one example. Yeah, the CAD techs create their own clean drawing, start from scratch. Just the best way we've found. You don't incorporate any potential corruptions that the field guys may have on their machine or how they processed it.
You don't trust those field guys?
Yeah, we do. Of course, they're our buddies.
Do you guys use the Design Center at all?
We do use Design Center, but it's Design Center is kind of going away in some regards. I think it's still good for, no, it's kind of going away. So if you go over into tool space, you can open up two drawings and then drag and drop whatever features or styles you want from that drawing into the other drawing in tool space.
Right.
And then styles, yeah, we don't use it that often, and we have some pretty you know, high powered CAD technicians working with us, so it's less and less. That's kind of what I refer to, but they say, Mike, stop using that. So they just say, just drag the style here and here. It's way easier. So, all right.
Yeah, we used it for layers and some blocks. So it seemed to
Okay.
be harder to find, and you don't have to actually bring an actual line in to get a certain layer. But yeah, I tend to use my tool space too.
Yeah. Yep. Layers and blocks. That's one thing you could use it for.
And Mike, I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to head out. When you are merging different data sets together with the field work, looks like from the examples that you showed tonight that your field crews are taking every shot out there. So they're shooting every point that goes into your survey. But I think when you move into a merged data set where some of it is conventionally located in surveys, some of it is drone collected or mobile LiDAR or terrestrial LiDAR, and then you're extracting some features out. The field guys either will need to communicate that information and understand that the CAD technicians will be extracting these features from a terrestrial LiDAR scan, and they don't need to shoot those or connect the lines with the codes. And you'll find that communication is more important between your field crew gathering and knowing what they need to conventionally locate, and then someone else processing data from a either aerial collection or terrestrial collection that features will be developed for the 3D model in those ways. So that is one thing that I've found is difficult. It's a new kind of 21st century information handoff, and the responsibilities between the guys collecting the information in the field and then the guys processing it in the office. In a optimal setting, the person collecting the information would process it, and they would start the project and hand off the delivered object to the client. But there's not many scenarios where we have that pure start to finish, one person touching the information and managing it from, start to the client. But when you're bringing more layers of information in, then somebody has to make that decision of whose responsibility is it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I learned from you on that one. So thank you for sharing that. So you're saying just more communication as you deal with different types of data sets is critical.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
And what we've done in a lot of ways to help with the safety of our field crew so that they're not out in the middle of the street collecting, shots on the road. We will scan an intersection, for instance, but they are still taking conventional survey shots. But then the center line of the road and the crown and lane lines and those kind of things are extracted from the LiDAR data set. But the CAD technician needs to be able to do that and then incorporate those features into the final topo. And the handoff is critical between field crew knowing what points they need to collect conventionally, and then CAD or processing technician knowing what points that they need to extract from a data set to fill out the whole topo.
Yeah, very much so. No, thanks for sharing that. That's a great point. So what we've done exactly what you said, a handful of times, and we leave it to the CAD tech to kind of manage the process. And I may have joked around, but we do have fantastic communication between our field and office. But what'll happen in this scenario is we'll have a drone crew go fly it. They'll create the point cloud for us on the proper datum. And then we'll have the CAD technician extract, lane stripes and, you know, things of that nature. Typically non-elevation critical features because we're using drone imagery. But no, that's a great point. And we have SX10s as well. So we scan the intersections like you said. And we're doing it more for backup right now in case features missed or the situation where they can't, it's too dangerous to get in the intersection. Yeah. We will extract finished ground points, finished surface points. That's something we got to really manage moving forward is communication when we get these multiple data sets. And then point numbering is still going to be an issue. Always got to think about that.
And I think as we start getting more into vertical too, the BIM stuff is going to be even more critical to get all that, you know, lined up, all that data with Revit and, you know, Civil 3D and point clouds. So yeah, that's definitely, data management is a huge industry, I think, in our field for sure.
And this Rob McMillan, it sounds like Civil 3D 2020 is even going to be going more towards the GIS Spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using actually 2021, Rob. Come on. We're talking 2020.
And are you using the poetry viewer in your map? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a cool thing too, as Mike said, is this is what we deliver. So this is a GIS, you know, an Esri template that we just basically hacked and added all the information that we, you know, that's pertinent to a survey. And then we just deliver the link to our customer and they get everything that, you know, Mike's showing you right now.
I mean, it's crazy, right? So when you look at the topo, you see, oh, cool, there's a curb line there. Little do you know, there's a cracked curb and gutter, right? You know, actually that might not be a crack, but but you get what I'm saying is you can see the expansion joints. I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of data the design engineer has.
Right.
So, oh, sorry guys. I'm on a.
Can I ask a question here, just to jump in? Earlier you said you use Google Maps overlay as well. Whereabouts does that fall in with when you're designing stuff like this?
No, so we use Google Street View just as a kind of a virtual surveyor process, just a QAQC from street maps imagery perspective.
Okay.
So we don't use it in any way outside of that, I would say.
Hey, Kent, so we're using, sometimes we do fly a lot of our sites as well, but sometimes in airspace restricted stuff where we can't fly, I have a subscription to a thing called Nearmap. It's like it sounds, Nearmap. And so they're an imagery-based system as well, and they fly populations of 50,000 or more. They'll fly it 3 times a year. So in some of these areas where Google Earth is, you know, maybe once a year or something like that, this Nearmap will have data sets back here just recently as July 1st or August 1st or whatever. So it'll have a little bit more updated imagery in some of these more populated areas. And we're using that, you know, similar with the Google Street View, so that CAD techs are bringing it in, looking at Street View, looking at the Nearmap, all of that kind of stuff, just to draw and see what those features are. So just another thing to look at. It's a subscription based, but it's a great tool to have for a lot of these areas.
Great tip. Thanks, Trent.
Yeah, no, it's nice.
So this is Poetry. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a free online viewer, but you can upload your loss file, and then you can cut profiles on the fly. Pretty amazing. I'm sorry, I'm using a trackpad right now to try and navigate this, but
how do you spell that, Michael?
That's a Kevin Hills question.
Okay.
It's really high tech, man. It's POTREE.
One more time.
Potree. Potree. And it's just a free viewer. Free viewer. It's beautiful. It works fantastic. And like Mike showed you right here, this is right in a web map, you know, that we're showing, and you know, you've got all the navigation tools right built into the system, and we just put it in as a point cloud, and yeah, it's great.
So, any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, I have a question. So my experience is mainly through the military. I was a geospatial sergeant in the Army, and I'm working for a company called Leidos right now, but I'm transitioning over to the surveying side and topography. But we use Map and Catalog, and I know Esri is now phasing that out because they're no longer going to keep updating the program. So now we switched over to Arc Pro. Can a lot of these data sets and, you know, the LAS files and everything be uploaded through Arc Pro?
Yeah. Yes, you can. We just find that it's much, you know, when we're doing our design and topos and delivering with our engineers, it's much more, you know, more efficient to deliver this product to our customers, but you can bring the same information into Arc Pro and you have the same functionality pretty much. You can bring in, you know, the Civil 3D, or you can bring in CAD, or you can actually just create your data within Pro, as long as you set up your templates. And what Mike showed you, you know, with the layouts, basically Pro has a lot of those tools already built in. So I guess it depends on the flavor of what you're used to. But Pro has pretty much, you know, everything that you would want. It just doesn't have the drafting tools that CAD does. You know, like for us, when we're designing or we're creating a detail for the engineers that we're working with, CAD is, you know, kind of the standard language between design. So the technical drawings, you know, that's where CAD excels. But, you know, I wouldn't do a design in Pro, but you can still do a lot of the other tools that you may not need to get down to the, you know, the nitty gritty of design, you know, design detailing that you need, but, you know, you can do it within Pro. The beauty of Pro is it's all, you know, ArcGIS is it's all online data. So I think AutoCAD, Civil 3D, and InfraWorks and ArcGIS are becoming a lot more ubiquitous. So they're a lot more connected. So if you want to bring in GIS data into Civil 3D, you just bring in the ArcGIS connector. Same thing if you want to go back from Civil 3D to ArcGIS, you just, you know, bring in the data from, you know, from CAD into ArcGIS. So I think those two platforms are, you know, they're going to merge into, you know, a pretty powerful data tool.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this is the drone imagery we get. I think you guys can see how clear this is. It's just amazing. So like I said, we have a 3D point cloud to view. We have we have aerial imagery, and then we also have the field perspective imagery. So days of QC and in the office are here. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, great imagery there, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. I took it myself.
You're a talented
You're
dude.
busted.
Yeah, right. That's Mr. Andrew and his crew.
Yeah, we have a whole crew of people. Their whole job now is just to, you know, we call them propeller heads. They just, you know, we've got like 5 guys that just go out every day taking photos and documenting all of our projects. And who would have thunk, you know, 2-3 years ago that we would have a whole, you know, team of guys just doing this stuff, and girls. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the conversations that we were having earlier about data sets and.
Hey, there's a surveyor.
Yeah.
Still exists.
Who is that? Where's the surveyor?
It's cool. Yeah, you would have never had these conversations, you know,
No.
5 and 10 years ago. So
Exactly.
it's
well, and Mike's, you know, with us, we're starting to do a lot more vertical. So Mike's going to be leading the charge and helping us get all of our BIM standards together with our vertical side. So that's another big push for us.
Yep, BIM's coming.
Yeah, right. Great job, Michael. Anybody have more questions? Jen, I know this was your topic you wanted to talk about, so
Yeah.
now's your
Just
time.
if anyone has any other resources they want to point me towards that go into this that part of CAD with the layout, laying out your templates and.
So here's a good resource. Go to Autodesk University, and they have basically for the last 7 or 10 years, they have all of their classes online, and they go from beginning to, professional development stuff. So that would be a good way to start.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you guys can see it, but National CAD Standards here. I'll put it in the chat. It's a good one. Just kind of get your head around what they are and, all the organizations using it.
I think Trent sent out the links that I had to Caltrans standards, CAD manual and such. And, our manuals can be, let's say, very useful at times if you have insomnia. But, there's a lot of great information in there. And, if you ever want to join the big orange team, you got a leg up.
Hey, man.
How would you do that?
No, we use both. It's just like the bars that play country and western. We have MicroStation and Civil 3D.
Yeah, the question was up earlier about sharing these videos. So I will, I've got a Dropbox for business type stuff, and I'll put all of last week's in there, and I'll put tonight's video in there as well. I'll share that Dropbox link so we all have these videos. I've written down a few links that I'll provide in tonight's email as a follow-up as well. So.
All right.
It's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was enjoyable meeting all of you. Hopefully we'll meet together face to face over a beer sometime in the next year.
10 years.
Yeah.
Reno, end of March 2021.
That's right. It's Rob's. That's going to be Rob's.
Wow.
His presidency. That's right. You got to come to support Rob.
That's going to be a party.
And we got Michael signed up.
Got that right, bud.
We got Michael signed up as the speaker now too.
Nice.
Perfect.
Oh man. We'll have to see.
Mike's going to hit me up now for AL. So yeah, it's like, okay, time off right now.
I'll have to see, man. All right, guys. Have a great night. Nice
Thanks,
meeting
Mike.
y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.